This is a look at advertising on a train in Japan. So one thing you'll notice quite clearly is that only one carriage of this train is carrying advertising. Now, it's perhaps not a surprise that this is the woman-only train of this car. So, in Japan, many train lines have these women-only cars. Now, in the area I live in, the women-only cars are typically only women-only during certain hours. So, the morning rush hour and late at night. However, in Osaka and Kobe, I've noticed that these women-only cars are typically women-only at all times. So there have been a couple of times where I've been queuing for a train and then I've noticed that I'm standing in the women-only line, and then I've had to shuffle along to the next carriage before I get on. These trains represent a good marketing opportunity, as the marketers know that the audience is just going to be women, so they don't have to worry about wasting their marketing spending on the undesirable males that they're not interested in targeting. There's an old adage in marketing which is that half of your marketing spending is a waste of time, but you just don't know which. When I first arrived in Japan about 14 years ago, these trains were only just starting to become available, and now they've become commonplace. And prior to their introduction, it was quite a controversial issue. There were demands for these trains. There was certainly a need for these trains, as the amount of crimes such as groping and also like indecent exposure type incidents were quite alarmingly high. For me, one of the interesting things is that offering these trains has had this unintended effect of increasing advertising revenue for these train companies, because they can provide marketers with this female-only target audience that they desire. Like most countries, women in Japan make most of the purchasing decisions in their household. It's quite common for married couples in Japan to have the father as the sole worker, but the mother will have control of the family finances. It's typical for a Japanese worker to only receive 30,000 yen a month for personal usage. Now, on first look, it sounds like a very bad situation for the guy to be in this situation where he only has 30,000 yen spending money. That's about $300. However, if you actually understand the working lives of Japanese men, you'd realize that they work extremely long hours, and they probably don't really wish to have to sit down and make a lot of financial decisions. So to have their wife take control of things and make the financial decisions on behalf of their family, it probably frees them up to do a lot of the things that they want to do in their free time. And sadly, if you've met a lot of Japanese people, you'll realize that one of their most common free time activities that people enjoy is sleeping. So it's always an awkward moment when you're teaching English conversation in Japan and you say to somebody, "What do you like doing in your free time?" And they say, I like sleeping. But such is the life and the working conditions in Japan that you do start to realize that, yeah, sleeping is good. I enjoy sleeping. I'm recording this at the end of the week, and I do have part of me saying, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to sleep in. And then before I go to my jiu-jitsu class in the evening, I might have another little sleep, and I'm going to enjoy it. So I was umming and ahhing about whether to upload this video or not today. I was a bit worried that I was trivializing this topic. However, I feel that there's no matter that is really completely trivial. It always has some importance to somebody. And in this case, it's perhaps important to the marketing world. So, on a more serious note regarding the situation on trains for women, I'll relate one experience I've had in the past. This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It was early in the morning, before 8 a.m., and I had just gotten off a crowded train, and there was a woman who was clearly distressed on the platform, and she was grabbing a hold of a guy, and she was saying that the guy had touched her bottom, and she was asking for people to help her. He was trying to get away from her, and the thing that surprised me in this situation was that there were so many people around, but very few people were even paying attention to what was going on. Very few people stopped to look. Me and one other guy got involved in the situation. So when the guy was trying to move away, I briefly grabbed this guy's bag and told him to stop, and he was immediately very submissive to me. He was a very geeky, nerdy looking guy, and he immediately began to sort of follow the instructions that I was giving him, to say like, okay, we'll go and talk to the train staff. And there was one other Japanese guy that assisted and was talking with the woman. So I'm from Australia, and if an incident like this was happening to a woman in Australia, you'd get a lot of people just standing and watching and drawing attention to the situation. And you'd also get a number of people involved in the situation quite quickly. So the thing that concerns me the most about this situation of train molestations, indecent exposure, things like that, is the bystanders really don't get involved like in the manner that you would expect them to. I haven't discussed train incidents with a lot of people, but the very first woman I asked about it in Japan, she immediately told me multiple stories that had occurred during her junior high school days of like flashes. I can't remember if she was groped because this was a long time ago. And it really alarmed me that in such a crowded place that people just ignored what was going on. She said that guys had opened their clothes to reveal themselves, and her and her classmates had screamed, and that passers-by had simply just turned to look, and then once they realized what was going on, they turned away and just carried on doing what you do on the train, which is ignore other people. I don't know how much of this is linked to overall culture or simply the bizarreness of the situation. If you've been on a rush hour train in Japan, you would know that it's a fairly uncomfortable experience. You've got people pressed against you on either side or on all sides of your body. And you just hope that when you get to the next stop, it's going to get lighter. And sometimes it gets worse. And then at the next stop, it gets worse again. I remember when I was at university, there was a phrase in one of the textbooks about Japan, and it said, the reason Japan is so rich are that its people are so poor. And it gave examples like these crowded trains that almost all Japanese people experience quite regularly in their daily lives, and other things like living in small apartments that perhaps separate Japan from other wealthy countries like those in Australia or Europe. Okay, that's my rant for today. I hope I've said all I've wanted to say, because now I'm about to switch off this little recording device. Have a nice day. Oh, yeah, actually there's one more thing I wanted to say that was quite related. So getting back to the marketing, and here's where I think the trivial matter does become important. Currently, there are men in Japan that have requested their own male-only car. And the reasoning is that there is a risk of being accused falsely of molestation. There have been cases where women have accused men of molestation and things like that, and then immediately or shortly thereafter, men have approached the accused man and requested money and told them that if you pay up, the complaint will be dropped or no charges will be pressed. So it's kind of like a false allegation blackmail type system. So because of this, some men have requested these male-only cars just so they have a place to go and they don't have to worry about the fear of these false allegations. So far, no train companies in Japan have offered these male-only cars. When women have been polled about these male-only cars, women generally support the idea of a male-only car, and men also support the idea of a male-only car. However, even though there is public support for these male-only cars, no train company in Japan is currently offering them. I would suggest to the supporters of these male-only cars that your best way of getting them enacted is to go to marketing companies and sell them on the benefits of a male-only car. Once train companies realize that they can make money by operating these male-only cars, they will appear. I think we live in a world where money is the most powerful tool. And that is all I have to say. If you have opinions, you can comment below. Behave yourselves. Have a good day.